Live once again. It's Jose Maldonado, your friendly neighborhood Microsoft SME. Since my last video, Cloud Wars, I, I introduced the idea of going over Windows 11 in the enterprise, and I thought about this a little bit. And as it was taking shape, um, there were certain twists and turns. I want to go in one direction and another direction. So I try to encapsulate everything that would end up being a high level roadmap for uh, anyone in enterprise IT wanting to not only prepare the organization for Windows 11, but actually implement it. All right. So let's jump right into it. I'm just pulling up my slideshow here. Let me share my screen. All righty then. So again, I'm Jose Maldonado. I'm a Microsoft SME. Been specializing in the area of um, operating system deployment, especially with SSCM or MEMCM now or MECM. There's a whole bunch of other names out there that it seems like it wants to keep changing, and I'm kind of over it at this point, to be honest with you. Okay, so what I want to get into again is Windows 11 in the enterprise. So let's move right along here. All right, so let's give a tail of the tape. So what we have here, obviously, a lot of organizations at this point should be running Windows 11, right? So if we're going to compare the two, Windows 10 has two releases per year, whereas Windows 11 has only one, right? Monthly cumulative quality updates pretty much sort of stay the same. You have your home and pro editions, even though with Windows 10, you could roll them out and have them for 18 months. That changed to 24 months with Windows 11. And from the Windows 10 Enterprise editions, 18 months for the spring release and then 30 months for the fall release. Well, there's only one release for Windows 11. So the Enterprise edition you can have for 36 months. Now, keep in mind that the Windows end of life for Windows 10 is October 14th, 2025. So I think you have just a little bit of time to plan this out, but that's not to say that we wait until then. And especially in terms of understanding it and preparing and getting the organization Windows 11 ready, we should jump on that right away. And some organizations have already done that. So all right, as we continue the tail of the tape. So what's not the same? So obviously the Windows 11 hardware requirements are not the same. So we have obviously the TPM 2.0 requirement. We have it's a 64-bit only operating system. There's some graphics requirements there, and obviously the motherboard has to be secure boot compatible. What is the same? Well, servicing, right? That remains the same, and also the ring strategy. But servicing is a lot easier with Windows 11, being that there's only one version of a feature update release per year versus the two. That makes it just a little easier. And I'm going to be honest, those that are do what I do probably haven't focused a whole lot on servicing uh, lately. So all right, so we have to think of Microsoft 365 as a cloud ecosystem at this point, and that the operating system is just a component of that. All right, so I want to focus on Windows 11 and its deployment. All right, so we have to run Windows 10 and Windows 11 side by side or have them cohabitate, right? Um, with Windows deployment, there's a lot of things that are the same. A lot of the tools are still available. Windows, you have Intune, you have Autopilot. Obviously, you have SSCM, MECM, or MEMCM, like I said before. Task sequence. So I've got to say the same thing that I said before that I've been saying all along, right? We cannot create 7 different task sequences between 14 different business units at an organization. It is better to leverage collections or WMI queries or custom settings or a combination of all of the above to create one task sequence to be able to deploy to the entire organization. So, what does that do? Simplicity. It's already complex. It's a complex process because the task sequence is not easy. Anyone who said, "Hey, I put a task sequence together and it worked the first time," the lie detector determined that was a lie. Okay, it just doesn't work like that. Again, us working with it, we're used to it, but building a task sequence that will work and is a good fit for your environment takes a little bit of time and a lot of planning, right? But again, you leverage all the tools that you have at your disposal to be able to create a task sequence that no matter if it's the HR department is being deployed with Windows 11, or it's let's say any engineering or finance or legal. Again, there is a way to leverage the tools that are already built into the Microsoft deployment operating system deployment process that you can achieve those goals where all the computers get what they need. And I'll give you a quick example. So let's just suppose HR, the business unit or department, requires a certain subset of applications. Well, there's something in the task sequence that can identify those users and or computers and then uh, deploy that subset of applications to only those in that department, right? Or to the devices in that department. If you have multiple locations, and I've seen this also where there's a different background and screensaver, which I mean, to a lot of organizations, that means nothing. But there are a lot of organizations that they have their first layer of security is the machine going into screensaver mode, right? And the background is specific to that location. So if you leverage the tools that Microsoft has to offer, you can deploy using one task sequence to multiple locations and each get the appropriate um, screensaver settings, so on and so forth. They don't have to all be the same. One task sequence. All right. So in terms of the migration options for Windows 11, it's the same. You got your the new scenario, refresh, replace, in place upgrades, all the standard tools that have been available for the past, I want to say, um, 3 to 4 years when modern desktop deployment was introduced. They're still available now. There may be they may have been improved, and there may be extra layers and features to them, but at the same time, those tools are still available. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, guys. It's a very important phone call. Hold on. Hello, Satya. Hey, no, I'm doing the webinar now. Yeah, I'm going to explain that next slide. Okay. No, I appreciate you reminding me. All right. Sorry, guys. That was Satya Nadella from Microsoft. Wanted me to remind you guys of a couple things, and here we go. Okay, so if your organization is still imaging or deploying any sort of Windows by booting to WinPE from a flash drive, if you're still running any sort of manual commands, if you are creating an image where you are installing all of your core applications and then capturing that image, so we call that burning applications into the image, I will have to say that is no longer considered a deployment strategy or modern deployment strategy. You got it all wrong. This is what Satya wanted me to tell you. And I hate to put it that way to say you got it all wrong, but again, you have to employ a modern desktop deployment strategy so that it works well in today's environment. Because obviously we have remote environments, and we have a hybrid environment where sometimes they're in an office, your employees are for a certain period of time, and they work remotely the rest, right? So you want to be able to maintain productivity, right? Give them what they need, but at the same time remain secure. All right. In terms of Windows 11 implementation, Um, you got to create a deployment plan, right? So defining your readiness criteria, I hate to sound like a project manager, but at the same time, this is what's going to save you, right? We're going to create a framework and as to how we're going to navigate through the complexities of this Windows 11 implementation, right? All right, so evaluate the infrastructure and tools, very, very important. But this also means, the skills of your SMEs, and other resources that you may have. Extensive testing. If you don't already have a test lab, create one, right? And test every single solution, or every piece and feature of the technology, as you are grafting this roadmap. um, and you have to ask yourself certain questions. So, is there a need for application rationalization? Should be a question at the very top of that list, and it needs answering, and it needs um, a definitive answer, right? Because application rationalization can stop a project. I've seen it stop a Windows 7 rollout. Um, for about 6 months, there was a delay there. And it's not fun because you go over budget at that point, and then you're rushing to kind of do one or the other or both. And you don't want to do that. Application rationalization is a delicate um, process that needs a lot of attention. And it should be something that if you haven't done in the past 5 or 6 years, it's probably something that you want to take a look at. The good news is that Windows 10 and Windows 11 uh, can run the same applications. If it runs on 10, it most likely will run on 11, which leads me to my next slide. All right. Can I bypass Windows 11 requirements? You can. Obviously, Microsoft does not support this, but there are certain things that you can do within the task sequence that can bypass some of these things. But one, there's a lot of workarounds, and you need a lot of expertise to understand it. It's going to lead to a slower deployment. It's not going to survive any feature updates, and you have software developers out there that are built that have anti-counterfeit components built into the software. So when you're installing it, it's looking for those same requirements of Windows 11. So if you don't have a TPM 2.0 chip, then that software will not install. What's a good approach? Okay, the simplest way that I could um, think of putting this would be, so life cycle management, right? Let's look at what you have in the environment in terms of hardware, because that's going to be the greatest hurdle, I believe. So organizations that have a life cycle management policy of 5 years or greater, or no life cycle management policy at all, they're probably going to have a tougher time, because essentially they use devices until they break down, right? So there could be devices in their fleet that are probably 8 years old, 9 years old. I've seen some that were one computer was 13 years old. Right now, I don't know what they use that particular workstation for, but again, um, they use it until they die. Versus some organizations actually have a 2 year, 3 year life cycle, and then they automatically swap the PC out and kind of go from there. So when you do a particular scan of your environment of the hardware, so I have if you see the graph here at the bottom of the slide, um, this is something that I came up with, and Windows 11 compatible PCs came out to be 52%. So 52% of the fleet is compatible and could be ready for Windows 11. Now you can get into more of the engineering pieces of Windows 11 and the deployment, so on and so forth. But you have to start at the hardware. What do you have, right? And obviously we've got 2,700 or 33% that are not compatible, and then the 15% of other. Now, in your readiness criteria, you would have defined what that 15% or that other consists of, right? So if you use some of the Microsoft tools in SCCM, then you can get a Windows 11 readiness report somewhat like this, right? And it lists what the computer name is, the operating system version, whether it's compatible or not, and it breaks it down between the CPU, the TPM, the firmware, memory, and the CPU cores, and also the hardware or storage space. Very informative, and we have to leverage tools like this. All right, so to give you a high level roadmap for Windows 11. So again, we went over this. You got to understand the hardware requirements, and you have to look at those and address those immediately. Leverage any sort of endpoint analytics that Microsoft has to offer, especially if you already have the licenses, right? You want to, if again, creating a lab, right? You can start an early validation by joining the Windows Insider for Business. Establish a plan for the cohabitation, like we talked about, Windows 10 living with Windows 11. You have one of the important pieces, partnering with your CISO on the new security features. So I've dealt with CIOs and I've dealt with CISOs, right? Chief Information Security Officers. And their views are very different at times and don't necessarily align. I've been on projects of very big organizations that the CIO pretty much was waging against the CISO that, hey, this particular operating system would not work here, and we should delay this. And the CISO saying no. And so, and they actually brought us in to do that project. And we did a proof of concept, but it was based all on pretty much a bet between the CIO and the CISO. But it's not to turn the volume down on one or the other, right? But we have to somehow create a plan where it aligns with the business goals, and we can move forward with the latest technology. Obviously, security is very important. Again, leverage all Microsoft tools. You want to develop a communication plan to make sure that you're reaching the right user expectations. Okay, so that is important. The user experience is very important. It's not about it looking pretty. It's not about giving the user what they want aesthetically, but at the same time, let's say it's healthcare. It's not just the different departments that are using the Windows workstations, but you also have doctors and other medical professionals and staffers that are using the image as well, right? So it has to be something that's going to work. I've seen where there were too many layers of security, where they would have to do a pre-boot authentication, and then they would have to sign in, and then they would have another layer of authentication where something went to their phone or something that they had to verify. That can become very tedious, right? So I'm not saying do not have multi-factor authentication. I'm saying let's look at the user experience and make sure that we take their feedback as well. And again, how can we get them to have a good experience while enabling them to reach the organization's goals? And you can get a lot of this by building feedback loops and refine the communications and plans as you broaden your deployment. You want to take in feedback early. So if you've got certain rings of pilot or pre-pilot, I suggest have at least 3 rings of pilot testing and users out there that can give you plenty of feedback. And this is separate from your initial testing that should be already extensive. All right, so what happens if the hardware is just not compatible? Let's just say that we have 70% of our hardware isn't compatible. Well, guess what? Microsoft has a solution for that as well. So the one solution for Windows 11 would be natively installed on a PC, right? But you could also use Azure Virtual Desktop, which used to be Windows Virtual Desktop, and basically is a VDI solution that Microsoft offers. And now you are using a cloud version of PC, so it can run on a hardware. Let's say it's Windows 10. You can remote in and actually use Windows 11 on the VDI. Same thing with the cloud PC. you can remote in and use a Windows 11 cloud PC from a Windows 10 workstation, right? So that's a solution. It depends on your organization, it depends on your business model, but I'm sure one way or another you can leverage the cloud solutions if you are still trying to mitigate and remedy your hardware um, uh, issues. So, guys, that's pretty much most of the things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to let you know that I'm going to have some upcoming webinars here. So, these are mainly published on the Switching Gears YouTube channel. But yeah, so the next upcoming webinars would be the modern desktop deployment scenarios, Windows Cloud, and modern management. I don't think a lot of organizations know what that looks like. And I think there are a lot of organizations out there that still are wondering about, security and having everything on the cloud or relying on the cloud principally for the your IT organization. But I thought that would be a good um, presentation to put together and have a conversation with folks and um, see where that leads. Thirdly, application rationalization and what does that truly look like? I'm going to be honest with you. This is a tough one because it takes a lot. And it takes a lot of doing because there are many components to it. It involves input from all of your departments. It involves prioritizing applications. It involves evaluating a lot of data and scoring applications. It's just a lot. So I wanted to kind of probably set aside a 45-minute webinar to kind of go over that and see what you guys think and get some feedback and some input, and if we have to do it in maybe a series, and that's what we would do. All right, modern endpoint goals. I just want to kind of just leave you with this at this point. So you want to basically have an infrastructure where it allows the employees and team members to be as productive as they can, but keeping the environment and the data secure, right? Again, because we're entering into this, hybrid workspace, or we're probably already here, and it's like the need kind of just sprung up, and then not everyone was ready. And I think we've been patching things together, but now hybrid work is a main component or mainstream component of the business life. So you want to be able to not only just prepare yourself but know how to streamline it in your organization. You do want to improve employee experience, right? And you want to keep them compliant while lowering your total costs, right? Create cloud connected multi-platform experiences for IT and employees. Again, leverage the cloud and everything that's out there. Identity and access management with policies and dynamic access decisions that enable a zero trust security model. So you want to be able to put everyone and manage things from, let's say, Azure, from the cloud's perspective, but then understanding how with certain policies and security features you can create a zero trust environment, but the productivity is and functionality of the workstations is still as high as they were when they were on-prem. Any questions? I'm going to check the chat real quick. I don't know that we have any questions, and if we do, we don't. That's fine. I may have not enabled them, but at the same time, if you do have questions, you can reach out to me at the email on the screen, jmaldonado@tasksequence.com. The website is soon to be put up. And listen, if you have any questions, reach out, because look, let me help you build your Windows 11 plan for you. Myself and other resources here, we can help you put together a quick plan, probably within 24 hours of you submitting what the requirements are, or us having a conversation. Put a Windows 11 plan together for you. We also offer full deployment and image engineering from top to bottom. and also project plans for Windows 11 operating system rollout. So I'm Jose Maldonado. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks, guys.